Hello and welcome to QuickTale English. Today, we share a new detective story, Shadows of the Past. Our story is about Detective Zlata Kovach. Zlata was 35, sharp, and known for her focus on small details. She worked for the city police department in the quiet district of Novi Arbat. Zlata loved the quiet of her district, but she knew that even the quietest places hide the biggest secrets. Zlata had a pile of cold cases, old cases that are closed but not solved, on her desk. One case in particular always stayed in her mind, the Clockmaker. The Clockmaker was the name the police gave to a serial thief and vandal, a person who destroys property. 10 years ago, the Clockmaker committed a series of highly specific crimes. The thief never took money. The clockmaker only stole timepieces, clocks or watches, and always left behind a broken antique compass, a tool to find direction. The crime stopped completely in 2015. No one was ever caught. The case went cold. Zlata was still a student 10 years ago, but she had studied the case files many times. The clockmaker was a ghost. The year is 2025. Zlata was sitting at her desk drinking her third cup of coffee when the phone rang. It was Officer Maxym, her junior partner. "Detective Kovach, we have a situation," Maxym said, his voice tight. "It's an intrusion at the History Museum, main exhibition hall. Nothing seems to be missing, but the security guard is very shaken." Zlata quickly drove to the museum. The museum was old and grand, full of ancient artifacts. A security guard, an older man, was standing next to a broken glass case. "What happened here?" Zlata asked, pulling out her notepad. "I don't know, detective. The alarm did not sound. I came here on my routine check. The glass was broken, but the famous gold coin is still here. Nothing valuable is gone," the guard explained, shaking his head. Zlata looked at the broken case. She looked at the floor. The thief was professional. No fingerprints, no major damage. But then Zlata saw it. On the small velvet pillow where the gold coin sat was a small, delicate object. It was a broken antique compass. The needle was twisted and the glass was cracked. Zlata felt a sudden coldness in the warm room. "Did you touch this?" Zlata asked the guard. "No, detective. I just called you," he replied. Zlata looked at Maxym. Maxym looked confused. "Maxym, this is not a random crime," Zlata said quietly. "This is the clockmaker. The compass is his signature, his special mark. But why here? He never stole from a museum before." Zlata ordered the scene secured. She felt a nervous energy. The ghost from 2015 was back. The next day, another incident happened. This time, it was not a public building. It was a private apartment on the third floor of an old residential building. The victim, Mrs. Elena Novak, a retired teacher, reported a burglary. The door was forced open, but Mrs. Novak said nothing was taken except one thing: a small silver pocket watch that belonged to her grandfather. Zlata and Maxym went to the apartment. Mrs. Novak was worried about her watch, not the money she had left on the table. "He did not touch my television, my jewelry, or my purse," Mrs. Novak said, tears in her eyes. "Only the watch. It was very important to my family." Zlata checked the table where the watch was usually kept, and there it was, sitting clearly on a napkin, a broken antique compass. It was identical to the one found in the museum. "It is the clockmaker, Maxym," Zlata confirmed. "He's back, and he's working in our district now. But why did he stop for 10 years, and why did he start again now?" Zlata returned to the station and immediately requested the old files from 2015. She spread the 10 case files across her table. She noticed a pattern she hadn't seen before. All the victims from 2015 lived within a 3-kilometer radius of a very specific location: the old abandoned clock tower in the city's central square. The new victims, the museum and Mrs. Novak, also lived within 3 kilometers of the same clock tower. The geographical pattern was the key. Zlata went to the central square. The clock tower was tall and unused, with broken windows. It was closed to the public. Zlata looked up at the clock face. The hands of the clock were frozen at exactly 4:05. Zlata suddenly remembered a detail from Mrs. Novak's file. The pocket watch was always wound at 4:05 p.m. every day. The time was a secret code. Zlata and Maxym obtained permission to enter the clock tower. Inside, it was dusty and dark. They climbed the wooden stairs. The gears and mechanisms of the clock were huge and silent. Zlata noticed something on the wall near the top floor. It was a recent scratch on the dust. Maxym, look here, Zlata pointed. Someone was here very recently. Behind the large clock mechanism, there was a small, almost invisible metal door. Maxym used a crowbar to open it. The small room inside was not dusty. It was clean and organized. It was a small workshop. There was a table, precision tools, and parts of clocks everywhere. And on the table, there was a stack of small, broken antique compasses. Dozens of them. They were all broken in the same way. The clockmaker was not just a thief, he was a craftsman. He had been working here for years repairing the compasses, preparing his signature. Suddenly, they heard a sound from the main stairwell, footsteps coming up fast. "He's here, Maxym. He knew we would find the pattern," Zlata whispered. A man appeared at the top of the stairs. He was young, clean-shaven, and wore glasses. He looked like an office worker, not a criminal. His name was Taras. "Detective Kovach, I knew you would come. The pattern is too obvious finally." "Who are you? Why did you stop for 10 years?" Zlata demanded. Taras smiled sadly. "I stopped 10 years ago because the one person who understood my message, my grandfather, the watchmaker, died in 2015. He was the only person who noticed the pattern of the crimes." "What is the message?" Zlata asked. "My grandfather told me that the city's time was broken. It was frozen, just like the hands on this clock tower," Taras explained, touching the clock mechanism. "The watches I stole were unique pieces from people who never moved from their houses. The compasses I left behind showed that they were lost. I stole their time to make the city look for a solution, for a repair. I wanted the city to remember the value of time." "And why did you start again now in 2025? Taras looked at Zlata with sad eyes. "I started again because this district, Novi Arbat, is my grandfather's district. The city planned to demolish this clock tower next week to build a new shopping center. The city was finally going to destroy the heart of time. I had to start the message again, right here, to protect his memory." Zlata looked at the broken compasses, the frozen clock, and the honest, desperate man. He was a criminal, but his motive was a strange kind of love for time and his grandfather's legacy. Taras was arrested, but the cold case was finally solved. Zlata knew that the shadows of the past sometimes return not for money or revenge, but for a final important message. The city's old clock tower was saved, at least for now. Thank you for joining QuickTale English. Subscribe for more stories about mystery, secrets, and the details that solve the case, and continue practicing your B1 English. See you next time.